Oh, I got
James
to
Stanley,
approve.
I am excited to be talking to you today. You are like an amazing guy when it comes to indie filmmaking. You've done it all. I mean, you've done acting, you've done producing, you've done directing, and I'm honored here to be talking to you today.
Well, the honor is mine. Thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure to be on your show. As I told you before, I really enjoy your show and was real excited to come on. So this is exciting for me.
So, first question I want to ask is, how did this journey begin? Where did it all start?
Well, it was a lot different than most. To give you, I'm 51. I've been at it for 50 years, so I'm going to make it as concise as I can. When I was about 6 or 8 months old, my parents were at a barbecue, and there was a guy at the other end of the backyard who was kind of looking at me strange. And my father was a very protective father, and he walked over to the guy and said, "You know what? You've been eyeballing my kid, and it's making me feel weird. What's going on?" He said, "Oh, I'm a casting director. There's this ad campaign we're trying to cast, and I've been looking for this baby for the family for months, and we're not having any luck." And it was for Century 21, which I don't know if you know back there, but it's a huge real estate chain, and
Yeah.
they were created the month after I was born, July of '71, and they were doing a whole ad campaign to start, to drive business and traffic and awareness to their company. So my dad was an actor. He was a working actor and was cool with it. And the guy said all the right things. They exchanged numbers, and I became the Century 21 baby at 9 months old. I don't remember it. And I ended up working a lot. I did over probably 150, 200 projects before I was in third grade. I worked a lot as a kid because I was real savvy. I had my father was in the film business, and my neighbors, I had neighbors like Tom Poston, who's a legend. So I've been around Hollywood, my whole life. So I was comfortable. And at about 7 or 8 years old, I remember being driven to Paramount Studios for a job. And I watched, and it was summertime, and all my friends were jumping off the bridge into the lake near our house. And I was really sad. And I just said, I don't want to miss growing up. I don't want to do this anymore. And that was my last gig, really, that I, didn't control. I mean, if I was doing something with my dad or on one of his shows, I would, but I didn't, I stopped. And my father around that time really, he stopped acting and became a documentary filmmaker. And so he had the RA 16 millimeters, the flatbeds, the moviolas at the house, and all the stuff that you do to make film. And he taught me, and I learned how to run the moviola and the flatbed and the 16 millimeter camera when I was, probably 7, 8 years old. And I've just always been around it. And as I grew up, as I told you before, I wanted to be in music and race dirt bikes because I didn't want to follow in my dad's footsteps. It's not, what I wanted to do, but
Yeah.
I kept just getting pulled in, and the rest was history.
Oh wow, that's amazing. So you did mostly commercials as a kid, and
Mostly commercials. My father had the contract for McDonald's and Encyclopedia Britannica when I was very young. And in fact, I remember when he came back from Chicago, and I was probably 6 years old, and came home with the prototype of the Happy Meal, and they were pairing up with Star Trek to do the first kind of merger of movie and fast food restaurant.
oh
So
wow.
Dad brought home all the Star Trek toys and fake food, and he was telling us what they're trying to do. And so I did a lot of commercials. Encyclopedia Britannica, which is probably before a lot of your viewers' time, was kind of the go-to educational. When we go to school and they'd bring the projector out and we'd
Oh
watch
yeah.
safety films, like Safety Check Your Car, Crossing the Street, or Burns and Poisons, or Don't Get Electrocuted. I was always the kid getting electrocuted and hit by a car. That was me. So
That's awesome. So how eventually did you get into the filmmaking aspect and producing and all that? I know you mentioned that it came from your dad, but you
yeah.
also mentioned your love of music. Like, who would you grow up listening to? I know
Well,
there's the
I grew up listening to, Van Halen, Aerosmith, a big, I'm a product of the 80s. So, the hair metal bands, everybody from Guns N' Roses to Motley to Poison, and, you know,
yep.
all those bands are my
Oh
favorite.
yeah, just
I
like
love
me.
them.
I'm an '80s child. I'm 43, so I grew up with Def Leppard,
Oh, yeah.
then Poison and Slaughter down, later down the road, and Great
Yeah.
White and those groups. I grew up, so I know exactly how that is. And yes, like you, I was into music for a while too. My dad played like Spanish folk music, like Puerto Rican
Oh,
folk
wow.
music, but like he wanted me to kind of go that route. Like, no, I'm more of a rock guy. So I started learning by ear, like Iron Maiden and, some of that stuff, like a little bit of Def Leppard and Simple Minds. So I started, you know, dabbing a bit in my teens as a bass player. So I
That's
know
so
how that.
cool. Yeah, I was a drummer, and I'm older than you, but by the time I was 10, 11 when the 80s came around. So I was kind of making my choices in music. And so yeah, I wanted to be in music, but I also my father was an independent documentary filmmaker. So the funds were very tight, and it was tough to get good crew. And I was very knowledgeable, as I said earlier, about all the equipment, and I was very set savvy. So when he would get, a few bucks to do his shows, I was part of the crew. I was just part of the crew. And then as I got older, opportunities started to come. And then as I turned 18, I moved out and got my own place, and I didn't realize how tough that was to maintain. And being an unemployed musician didn't pay the bills, so I found that it was easy for me to get work. Whether it be as a PA at Entertainment Tonight or on Seinfeld, I worked on that show for about a year. For Castle Rock, the parent company, and they float me around, and I just got to know a lot of people. And then Rick Siegel, who was a manager for people like Leah Remini and I think Paul Reiser back in the day, he saw something in me. He took a shot with me and said, "I want you to start producing and moving up the food chain. You've been doing you've been doing the grunt work a long time, and you've done it well. It's time to start stepping up." And Rick really gave me an opportunity with the network TV system to start moving up. And
Oh
that's
wow, that's
that's
awesome.
really what happened. And then, obviously my father and I, we made Gridiron Gang, the documentary with Lou Gossett Jr. back in 89, 90. I just graduated high school. And then, that became a big hit with The Rock as a remake with Sony. It only took, 15 years to actually get made. But the deal was done very quick, but actually getting made took, a good 15 years.
That's quite fascinating. I mean, but yeah, I've seen all the time. They start with the low jobs, but then you do move up that ladder, and eventually, like you said, you found your calling. It seems like, and so what was the first project you actually produced yourself that you could?
First project that I was like physical producer on was one that never came out. But it did really well in the festivals and all that. It was a film called Street Pirates, which was kind of a culmination of everything Dad had done over the years working with incarcerated youth. He had really made his niche in doing documentaries on at-risk youth and taking out kids that were the worst of the worst in the juvenile prison system and taking them out on boating expeditions or mountain climbs and all this stuff. And we had somebody come to us that wanted to do another one with us years after he had kind of done all that. So we accepted the challenge and did the film. And we took 7 kids out of a maximum security prison who were locked up for every crime you can imagine. And we trained them for 10 days how to sail on a competitive sailboat to race in the largest regatta on the West Coast. And so it was 7 kids, 10 days with one goal to win. And they took second place out of 65 boats. And they did
Oh,
really well. And it was on them. It was kind of like Gridiron Gang on the water. It was on them. It was a tough film. We shot it in film when video was really the thing.
oh yeah.
And but it was a really good project. And it was kind of one that I was really hands-on in. And we learned a lot on that one. That was an exciting project to do, and it didn't come out. It's sad. I think we had exhausted the niche. We should have shot it on tape. We shot it on film, so it inflated the budget by about 250 grand. And it just the money against the project versus the opportunity back then for the distribution just didn't make sense for the investors. So they just didn't want to take a chance and lose when it could have come out and I think done very well.
Oh, that's too bad. That sounds fascinating. Who
It was a good
knows?
show.
Maybe someone will watch this interview and make it into a feature film. You never know what could
Well,
happen.
there is a script. There is a script.
Oh,
I
did you
didn't
write
write
it?
it. My father did. Yeah, my father did. Yeah,
Oh, okay. Hey,
yeah,
so
he
you never
wrote it.
know.
You
It could
never
happen.
know.
We could see that.
So
So,
that was the first film I ever like really produced on my own. And then I went in, and it was shortly after that, I was running Charlie Sheen's production company
Oh wow.
and started producing a lot. You know, we did a lot of things together over the course of 3 years. So it was kind of a really fast turnaround from that.
Oh, what was that like? What was that like working with Charlie? It must have been a blast.
It was a blast. You know, I know people love asking me, you know, I've actually had heads of studios call me in for meetings, and I think they'd want to talk about projects and just wanted to know what it was like working with Charlie Sheen in the 90s. And you know, I don't think there's anybody in this industry with a bigger heart. He sincerely wants his team members to exceed and excel, or succeed and excel. He's the kind of guy that really wants, he's loyal to a fault. He's got a heart of gold. I owe so much of my career to Charlie. You know, he introduced me to Zalman King, who was his godfather. You know, Zalman King did Red
Yeah,
Shoe Diaries and 9.5 Weeks, and Zalman and I hit it off the day Charlie introduced us, and I worked with Zalman until the day he died.
oh wow.
And you know, I you know, had a writing career because of Zalman and all that. So you know, there's a lot of, I have a lot of gratitude to Charlie for what the opportunities he afforded me that I don't even really know that he knows. But
Yeah, I'm pretty sure now he might, because you never know if he's gonna watch this episode. If he does, you know,
we
we are
see each other at weddings and funerals still, and we say hello. And I think the world of Charlie. You know, such a talented writer. He taught me how to write
oh wow.
dialogue, especially. I don't think there's a better dialogue writer than Charlie. And yeah, it's, I'm not gonna lie, you know, working with Charlie Sheen is like trying to have a picnic at the end of the runway. You know, it's an adventure, never a dull moment. But you know, when he was there to work, there was nobody more committed. He was unbelievable.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
what's easier for you? Is it documentaries or feature films? Which one would
I
you
don't do
consider?
documentaries anymore.
Oh yeah. Well, based on your experience, what would you say you prefer? You prefer just feature films nowadays?
I don't do them anymore. That's a choice.
Okay. Well, you pretty much answered the question.
I mean, I appreciate them. I respect them. It was never my passion.
Right.
I always wanted to tell stories that I was always very imaginative as a kid. I actually rewrote Rocky 3 when I was, you know, 9 years old. I love the idea of writing and recreating or telling stories and creating characters that people could either relate to or want to spend time with for 90 minutes, you
Yeah.
know. And they're often inspired by true, you know, like Double Threat. Double Threat actually comes from a very funny story. My father and I, he was directing a film in Mexico with Amy Johnson and Joe Lando,
Oh,
and he and I drove down to Mexico from Los Angeles to Loretto and back. It was a, you know, a day and a half trip to get down there. And on the way back, far south of the border, we stopped at a gas station mini mart to fuel up, get some snacks for the, you know, the next leg of the trip. And there was a very attractive woman, a white woman, working in this liquor store in the middle of Mexico. And it was like, she don't belong. Something like, this is weird. And I remember I got back to the car, and I got a pen out of the glove box. And I started writing on a napkin, and my dad goes, "Let me guess, you're writing about that." And I said, "How can you not?" He said, "Yeah, something didn't add up there. It was really interesting." So I put it in my glove box and then in a drawer. And, you know, 4.5 years, 5 years later, the pandemic hits, and we're looking for something to do on a dime during the heat of the pandemic. And Double Threat was born.
that's awesome. Speaking of that, I absolutely enjoyed Double Threat. I mean,
Thank you.
I love indie action flicks. That's like one of my, ever since I was a kid, I used to watch the B movies. I was always running B movies. Like, so it was like nowadays you don't call them B movies, you just call them indie films. So that's what I say now. Like,
Oh,
yeah,
I call this a D movie.
you call it
For
D
Double
movie.
Threat right now for
There
Danielle,
you go.
right? No, I'm kidding. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, but I grew up watching those movies. Like I used to always go to, like my dad used to work at a video store, a furniture store across from the video store in the Bronx. So every Saturday we would go to the video store across the street from where he worked, and he used to always rent me a B action movie. So I was like one of these little budget action. So I grew up so watching so many of these, and then Double Threat was like I really enjoyed it because I didn't even realize that Danielle was thing one from Cat in the Hat. I was like, when I looked it up, I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. I was like,
Choose thing one.
Yeah, and then Matthew Lawrence, I
This is
can't.
Doubtfire, right?
Yeah, exactly. This is Doubtfire and the Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad. I used to watch that as a teen, so I was like, "This is amazing." And then seeing that Danielle did all of her own stunts was the kicker for me. And so, what was
Wasn't
that
that
like?
something? Wasn't that something? And that was, I'll tell you the story behind it. It was actually really funny. Is the writer of the script, C.J. Wally, and I were looking for some real good actresses that could kick ass. It's tough to find. I mean, you can find
Yeah,
women that can kick ass, but are they going to hit their mark and know their line, or is there a good actor who thinks they can throw a punch and a kick? And it's a tough combination. I'm not going to lie. It's very hard to find.
yeah. Nowadays it
And
is. Yeah,
it really is. I don't care if they
compared to the
take
past.
karate or
Compared
whatever.
compared to the past. I mean, the past you were able to get any a female martial artist who can do all this. You got Cynthia Rothrock, who's still
Yeah,
going, and Michelle Yeoh, who's
yeah,
they're like the premier talent, and they're still going to this day. But
they are. And that was kind of the inspiration for this. And CJ and I just kind of wanted to make a female exploitation action comedy that we're not going to take seriously. We knew we had no money to make it. We made the film for literally nothing. COVID was at its height. It was November, December of 20. And most of the budget went to COVID tests 3 times a week for the cast and crew. We had a crew of maybe 10, 11 people. As you saw, a cast of 4
yeah,
who were never together. Until the very end, we had to keep them separate. We had to do green screen for all the car work, which was ridiculous because we weren't planning on it. So we just said, all right, the Department of Health and the union showed up the day we started shooting, and they said, no, everybody out of the car, no cameras, nobody in the car. So we called somebody, got a green screen, and just started doing that. And I thought, well, let's push the envelope on the cheesiness of the green screen, because everything Danielle does on the horse and then her fighting and driving is all real.
yeah.
So why don't we play the green screen and the truck flip and just make it look stupid? Like our DP did the truck flip on his home computer in his kitchen one day when I was at his house. I mean, it was like, let's just have fun with this stuff that we can't control. and,
Yeah.
and took that approach, and that's really what we did, and we just had fun. It was just, again, you go back to that, look, our resources are incredibly tight. We were really fortunate to get Don Olivieri, who's on Yellowstone, to get involved with the project, and Kevin Joy. We just had so much fun. We just got people that
Oh,
wanted to get out of the house.
Kevin was cracking me up to that whole movie. Just
He's
that
great.
character. He had to be one of the best villain characters I've ever seen in a while, because he's just really he was so over the top, and that you say yourself, you can't take it seriously. Like, I couldn't take him seriously at all. He was just
Yeah.
love
And it was
struck.
never meant. It was never meant to be taken seriously. That's why Don Olivieri says, "What the hell do you think this is? A fucking Hallmark movie?" I mean, that was okay. Look, we're reminding people this is not supposed to be taken seriously right now. We are having fun, And Kevin was absolutely amazing to
That's
work
awesome.
with, and I love him. He's great.
Yeah, Matthews, was totally getting into it with this character as well. He's first he starts out the scared. He's the scared little guy who has to gain the self confidence in this whole adventure because he's pretty much forced into it. But
Yeah.
when he finally does by the end reel, here he is, a changed person in a way, and I think he did a phenomenal job as well.
Matthew did a great job, and another guy who's a real, he did all his own driving stunts. Obviously, there was a lot of green screen by force, but all the time you saw that green truck off-roading and sliding and getting chased by the Ford Raptors, that was all Matthew driving. Him and his brother, I guess, were part of a Baja off-road racing team. So when it came to it, he's like, "Hey, I know you're proud of Danny for doing all her stunts, but let me do my own driving. I'll do it." And
Oh
we
wow,
didn't double any of them. They did all their own stuff.
yeah. I mean, Daniel's fight scenes were great. I mean, I did, the last person I could see someone doing that was Amy Johnson. She's a stunt woman turned out, she's done her
She's
fair
my
share.
goddaughter. I know Amy very well.
Yeah, so it's I could see Amy Johnston. I could see her doing
Yeah.
her possibly doing this role too. But man, I'm glad that they got someone else like Danielle to do it, because I feel like we're starting to get back into the female action star. Not the ones who are big Hollywood stars and have to train for these films. Like we tend to get nowadays. But the indie films, you're getting people who have the skill set and can actually kick some serious ass.
Well, what's nice about Amy, and she was the one who was in Paloma's Flight, who I drove down to go see in Mexico, which my dad, I was there the day Amy was born. Her father, David, was one of my closest friends, may rest in peace. He passed a few years ago.
Yeah.
Uh, her parents have always been like kind of family to me. And what's neat is Amy, I'll tell you what I love about Amy is she showed up here from, they lived in Wyoming. And Amy showed up here and just said, "Oh, I'm here." Didn't ask for anything, didn't want a phone number, didn't ask for anything, knowing that, me and my dad were immersed in the industry. And Amy got thrown into Hollywood by her own doing, and within 6 months was working. Did it all on her own. And it started with her showing stunt people what she could do.
Yeah.
And she can also act. She's a very good actor. And in fact, it's great because it's funny that you mentioned that, because Amy, it's great. She stars in a lot of her stuff, but she's Scarlett Johansson's double. She does what we're talking about for the big stars.
Yeah.
She's double for a lot of leading ladies out there.
Yeah, exactly. One of her best fights recently was Accident Man against Scott Adkins. I mean,
Amazing.
that fight was just stellar. That's like one of the best things she's ever done, hands down.
Yeah, it was. It was. Yeah, I'm real proud of her. She's amazing.
So are you considering doing another action film down the road that, something of this caliber? Because I gotta say, this was fun, even though it was the height of COVID, but now that COVID's kind of subsiding, are you gonna delve into this kind of type of genre again? And
Oh, I love it. I mean, we have a film coming out on January 13th called Night Train, which Danielle stars in, and Kevin Joy's in it too, with Joe Lando and Diora Baird and, God, Joseph D. Reitman. We've got a whole bunch of people in it. It's a big ensemble cast, and there's no fight scenes in it. Ben Ruby's in it as well. But there's a lot of car chasing, a lot of motorcycle racing, a lot of stuff. It's a pretty hairy action film. It's kind of like Smokey and the Bandit, but we put the girls in the driver's seat and let the boys ride shotgun. And
awesome. So, all right, you
that,
mentioned Smoking the Bandit. That's it. I'm seeing it. That's it.
that's it. Everything we do moving forward is female driven. It has been for me for a while. For me, it's about put the leading ladies in the driver's seat and let the guys ride shotgun. They've been driving long enough, and let's show the world what these girls can.
I am so glad to hear that, because I feel the same way. I think we need more female action heroes nowadays. We do. We don't get enough of them.
No,
Really.
I don't think we do. And, look, I've been in the studio meetings after, you hear about all the equality and we need more women or we need more people of color. And I'll tell you something, and, you sit in those meetings and they shake their head and they say, "No, we're not." It's why you're not seeing more. There's the few, but
Yeah.
it's unfortunate. And I remember after the big push to see women really get put in leading roles of action films getting kind of pushed back. I remember leaving a meeting and just saying, "That's it. That's what I'm going to do then. If they don't want to do it, I will."
Yeah, that's the way to go. I mean, look at Hong Kong. They had their own, they had the girls with gun genre for like the 80s and 90s.
Huge.
So,
It's huge.
yeah, aside from Cynthia and Michelle, you had Moon Lee, Cynthia Khan. Like, I grew up watching Hong Kong movies. That's actually why I studied it when I'm a film studies major, so I specialized in Hong Kong cinema. So
Wow.
So I used to watch all those movies, and then seeing today's, I'm like, we don't get it. We need more of this. We need to have the female action hero back.
Yeah.
I miss that. Because you get to see them kick some serious butt, like they could be just as good as the guys, and some of them are even some of them are even better.
Well, you look at girls like Danielle or Amy, and I mean, I remember when we shot her big fight scene. She had her big fight scene in Double Threat,
Yeah.
with the two guys. And those, I got to give a lot of credit to Doc Duhame. Doc is like a second dad to me. I've known him as long as I've known Amy Johnston. I mean, Doc's known me since I was 8 years old. And Doc, he's a very well-respected fight coordinator. He did Ray Donovan. He did a lot of stuff for Raiders of the Lost Ark and a lot of shows. And Doc is known for his violent fights. And it was really cool doing this with him and Danny, because they just had so much fun, and Doc got his guys, and I'll tell you, she held her own. I mean,
She did.
just did it. And there was actually a couple, I will tell you, there was a few shots that the distributors demanded we took out of the film because they were so violent.
What?
And they looked so violent. I mean, they did. And like, we had to take 4 or 5 shots out of the fight scene and replace them because they just looked too real.
Oh my God! Really?
When he's got her up against the black truck and he's just hitting her, there are some angles of that they kind of make your stomach turn a little bit. And I knew when we slugged the film together, when Frank Reynolds and I cut the film, even he was like, dude, this stuff looks so real. And those were flagged, and we had to replace them, and that's okay. But yeah, there are some women out there that are just unbelievable ass kickers, and I really want to see more and more of that, and what we do and what other people do. We should be seeing a lot more of that.
Yeah, I definitely like. I would like to see Danielle. I want to see Danielle and Amy team up in a movie. That would like as sisters. I can
Well,
actually.
I will say we did leave the door open on Double Threat for a triple threat, and CJ and I and Danny have had the conversations that we would find that twin that we never found. And
Oh,
would it be Amy? We've actually kicked that around, because I don't want to do like have Danny play 3 people, or let alone fight herself or anything stupid. So why did she didn't have to be an identical twin?
Yeah, she could be a fraternal twin.
Fraternal twin. Yeah, imagine if Amy was her sister. I mean, they're the same height.
Yeah, it'd be perfect. Yeah, there you go.
They're very close in age. I mean, Amy and Danny are like almost the same age.
Yeah, so that'd be perfect. There you go. There you go. We got a sequel in the works now. We got
It's already in the works. We've already got 30 pages of it written.
Oh, really?
Sure, why not?
There you go. So
I have insomnia sometimes, No.
Yeah. So what's this book that we see in the background that you're
Oh, my book? Oh, thank you. It's what you don't learn in film school. It's a book I wrote a couple of years ago, and it's basically a manual of what not to do. And I wrote it for the aspiring filmmaker that doesn't have any idea about the industry or what they want to do. I wrote it for the film school student, because I do spend a lot of my off time traveling the country, speaking at different schools. It's nice because since COVID, it's starting to happen again.
Yeah.
And I just, I was consulting a lot of people, and the phone would ring off the hook, or I get countless emails. And after a long period of time, the questions were a lot the same. I made a movie. What do I do with it? I want to make a movie. How do I get money? How do I get actors? I've got money. It just didn't end. And I got tired of constantly parroting the same thing to people year after year. And not that they should have known. It was just people were coming to me and asking me, because I've, kind of carved out a career as an indie rat, just finding independent financing and making movies that I believe in. And that's kind of a thing for some people. And I literally sat down one day during the holidays in 2018 or 2017 or 18, and I took 3 weeks and just wrote the book. And then I had a wonderful editor, Marissa Foglia, who made sense of all my drivel and kept it in my voice, and she did a great job. And I'm proud to say the book ended up on the top 20 audiobooks of all time for film in Hollywood. I mean, we're on there with some like Lucas and Coppola and some of the greats. And I don't know how that happened, but the book's done very well and has become mandated reading in a lot of film schools across the country and in the world. Believe it or not, it's been translated into, I think, 13 or 14 languages.
That's amazing. I mean, and you know what? And you're not the only one who's done, wrote books about, how to write, how to do films, and not need the money. I got one a couple of years ago from Tom Getty. He's another indie filmmaker, and he did what we called America Has Fallen, and he wrote a book called How to Make a Blockbuster Movie Without Needing Blockbuster Money. The type of money. And then you had the legendary Lloyd Kaufman, Troma's Lloyd Kaufman, Make Your Own Damn Movie, or How to Make Your Own Damn Movie.
That's right.
Like these are 3, like your book and their books are like 3 awesome examples of how to go about making a movie, and not really having to go just do it yourself. Just
the resources are endless now. There's no excuse. I mean, back in the day when film cost what it did, or getting beta cams and tapes and transferring so you could edit, I get that. There were a lot of hurdles for people that were trying to get started out, but I mean, good Lord. I mean, I hate to say it. We've got our phones. We've got, DSLR cameras you could buy on QVC and return them after 30 days and get your money back. Go shoot a movie. There's no excuse.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's no excuse. And shoot a lot and make mistakes and learn from them. That's all we do, is just we keep going. You just keep going, and it's like an athlete does. You exercise and you get better, and that's all we do.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember I talked with a horror filmmaker a few years ago named Dan Walker, Spooky Dan Walker, and he was talking with a bunch of his fellow horror filmmakers because they live within like 10 miles of each other. And they're like, what's the best thing you do on making my first feature film? They always say, come up with a plan B, a plan C, a plan D, because you never know what's going to happen. So don't just stick with plan A. Always keep going. Keep sticking with it. If you can't,
Yeah.
if it doesn't work out, just find another way to do it. You'll eventually get it. And
You'll eventually get it. And I'm a big believer you have to do that while you're making a film. It's like, for example, with Double Threat, we started shooting that November, December of 20 when they first allowed us to start shooting again under these incredible rules.
yeah,
And Batman was shooting, they got shut down. And then there was this talk we were all going to get shut down. And Jurassic Park, whatever one
yeah.
they were on was shut down. And it was the day before the Thanksgiving break, and it was a Wednesday. We shot the beach scene at the end, and I brought everybody around. And I just said, guys and girls, we may get shut down. I refuse to accept that. We lost 9 locations on that day. We had a really vast location plan for Double Threat, and we lost 9 in one day when that mandate that they were going to shut us down again happened. And you talk about having a plan B. I had a friend in Castaic that had 85 acres. He said, if you ever need it, just give me a call and I'll leave you a key. And that's why so much of the film was shot there, because we literally, after 5 days of shooting, had to cancel our plans and just move everybody up to this film ranch and lock ourselves behind gates and shoot for another 14 days.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
So Double Threat was a plan B in production because we lost 9 locations.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's pretty shocking to hear, but you pulled it off. I mean,
Well, thank you.
if anyone has not seen the movie yet, I recommend it. You all need to see it, say hands down, because don't take movies too seriously all the time. Don't always expect the Coppolas, don't always expect you know these serious films. Don't, just sometimes you just got to have fun watching.
That was
Just
all we
enjoy it.
wanted. Just enjoy yourself. I mean, and also the thought was behind it was road trip, 2 people on the lam. It was we literally were 6 months into COVID. It was August, September, and I called CJ, the writer, and said, I got to get out of the house. I got to figure it out. There's got to be something we can do that's going to be legal and safe for COVID, that's going to get us productive. And let's not make something that feels confined. Let's do something out in the open, because we've all been in our homes or wherever we've been staying for 6 months. We got people let's not shoot too much inside. Let's keep this outside, keep it moving. So that was the plan. It was a real COVID baby.
Yeah, and I remember I spoke earlier, a couple months ago, as a matter of fact. I talked with a Louisiana-based indie film director, Paul Dale. He did a
Oh yeah, I
movie
know
called
him.
he did Sewer Gators. And he was telling me I can make these movies in 3 days. I just have fun with my friends. I'm just making a movie. I'm looking. I was like, I saw some of the props, man. I can get them Dollar Tree. He just ran with it, and it was like I was like it was the most craziest movie I've ever seen. But I mean that in a good way, because like I said,
Yeah.
I grew up watching these low budget flicks, so I always know what to expect. If I see the trailer, I'm like, oh, this is going to be kind of crazy, but I know I'm going to enjoy it. That's how I view it. I don't look at films that like I think I'm like I don't see films as like a serious film critic. I just see it as a fan, and then just I may like it, I may not. I mean, some of the blockbusters I'm not too thrilled about, but even still, but like indie films are like a lot better nowadays because
Yeah.
you get so much. You can make a movie for so little money, but have better quality than these big blockbusters.
Well, the blockbusters of, somebody asked why they thought Double Threat had had the successful run it did last month. It was in the top 10 for almost a month with, Ambulance and Dog and Sonic Hedgehog and all these films. It lived on the chart for 3 weeks. And the only thing I could think of, because we didn't have any PR behind it, it just happened. The film came out in June and it was in October that it saw it surge. And the only thing I could think of was it was exactly what you were saying. Is I think people had just kind of numbed out to the same old,
Mm-hmm.
CGI, green screen, high wire act, and those are fun, and I don't take anything away from them. It'd be great to have $200 million to spend in a soundstage, but I think some people just wanted to see something just a little bit more stripped down and raw.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of films that we do. We don't like green screen. We don't do CGI or effects. We got it, shoot it.
Especially as the one example I'm always talking about, $25 million just to remove facial hair from someone for, Justice, in the case of Justice League. I'm like, no, why spend that much just to remove facial hair off an actor?
I will tell you when Ashton Kutcher did the remake for Look Who's Coming to Dinner. You remember that comedy
Yeah.
he did?
Yeah, guess who? Yeah.
Yeah, guess who? I was working with the studio at the time, and I wouldn't want to breach anybody's trust, but I did hear directly from the head of the studio how much they spent to remove his Kabbalah bracelet, the little red yarn.
Yeah.
More money than I've ever spent on a movie.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
It was strictly CGI and getting his little red yarn off his wrist. It was ungodly how much they spent.
Oh my God, that's crazy. That's just crazy. I'm glad that I'm even glad that they're using practical effects for like the genres now, because it just makes it more, it's cheaper, and it's also, I think it's more visually realistic. I rather
more organic. Yeah, it's more organic. It's nice.
Yeah, I'd rather see fake practical effects than see CGI that just looks. Yeah, no, I'm good. Y'all stay away from that.
Well, you notice the truck flip.
Yeah.
And that was me and our co-producer, Neil Chisholm, who I've known since he was 13, 14 years old. We used to race motorcycles together. That was me shooting the gun outside of the window, and Neil was driving. And what happened there is the original script was Matthew and Danny's character just kind of, she comes in, she shoots back, she settles, and he goes, "Are you done?" And she goes, and then you hear the truck hit something and explode. You never were supposed to see it. It's never the plan.
Right.
Now I'm done. And then they start their journey. And this is a God's honest truth. The budget was so low on the film, as our cinematographer, Joel Leogan, asked me, he said, "Can I color the film?" And I said, "You want to color the film?" He said, "Shane, you have no money. I want to learn how to color. We'll have fun. We had so much fun shooting it. Let me continue this journey with you." I said, "Okay." So Joel colored the film. He did a really good job. And so Joel and I were at his house one night, and he said to me, he said, "God, it would be cool if we could like show the explosion or the truck flip or something." I said, "Yeah, that would be great if we had a budget." And he goes, "I learned how to use this program. Bear with me." And he literally opens up this program, and he found the exact truck. It was the 2020 Ford Raptor. And he got one, and he modeled it and 3D imaged it. And like within an hour, he had that thing hitting the bridge and flipping. And it looked so bad, it was good. And he looked at me and he said, "Dude, there's no way you can use this, but this is what I'm trying to learn." I said, "Bullshit, let's use it." And we used it as a joke. And I never this is a God's honest truth. I never intended for that visual to be in the release. And what happened is we had sent the film in to get QC'd, and there were some issues or dropouts. So I called Joel, and he was in Louisiana doing Sacrifice. He's the DP for that series for Paramount. And he sent me all the files, and I mixed and matched them. And the God's honest truth is the first time I saw the film with that in there was after it had been released. It was never supposed to be in the film. I swear to God. That was a test joke that ended up in the film.
That's freaking
True
awesome.
story. True story. And there's no reason it should have passed QC, because if you watch it, you'll see the pixels, you'll see the dots on the truck corners that he used for the 3D imaging. It's all there. So it wasn't like that should have been in the film. I think the film had passed QC and we threw some patches or something. It was a total accident. And I'm glad it ended up in there.
So am I.
I stopped cringing because I know how bad it is, but it's like, yeah, why not? Let's put that in.
Yeah, that's awesome. That just made me a happy man just hearing that, because it's like, holy cow.
True.
Yeah, it looks great.
Okay.
I mean, and I think one of the reasons is my son is now doing that. He's doing computer animation, and he's only 15, and he does Minecraft. He's doing animation with Minecraft stuff.
Oh,
and
wow.
So, and he has his own YouTube channel, he's just loving it, and he's learning more and more. I think that's something he might want to pursue down the road. He wants to get into. I think he might want to do something along the lines of that as he gets older, because it seems like he's really having fun with it.
Well, there are programs that are free that you can build these things on, as I'm sure you know, and that's what Joel did. He said, "Oh," and he literally just opened up his internet and started downloading stuff, and he built the flipping truck in like 20 or 30 minutes. And it was like, I don't know how he did it, and the whole process took about an hour until he rendered it in, and I said, "All right, that's cute. Let's move on." And It's
I think
amazing.
you do something like that again for the sequel. I
Oh,
just do.
if we do a double threat, triple threat sequel, we have already decided that we're gonna push the envelope with the fighting as organically as we can with,
Oh yeah.
with the girls and anybody else that wants to sign up. But we have decided that we're gonna have a lot of fun with some really crap CGI just to, you know,
I think you'll get attention that way, and I don't mean that as a bad way. People are like,
it's in an Ed Wood way. I may get the string and the, the plane next time, and
there you go, or get props from Dollar Tree, like Paul Dale does, and with his
I
films.
do anyway.
Yeah,
You
there you go.
kidding me? Our prop budget is like $500 a film. All that stuff is yeah. I mean, I either look around the house and think, what can I write? What do I own that I can write in, or tell CJ to write in, or I'll grab, and then my wife and I will hit the dollar store. We'll just go on Amazon for a little bit and patch the holes with what we don't have. That's what we do.
Yeah, there you go. That's the way to go. I
It's
hope
fun.
I hope aspiring filmmakers will enjoy this episode because I think they're really going to learn a lot. I really think they do. They will.
Oh, I lost you for a sec.
There you go.
I lost you for a second. I think right away.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
back. Go
Okay,
ahead.
we're
Say
good.
that again.
I think aspiring filmmakers will definitely learn a thing or two from you, and with this episode. And I couldn't be more honored to have talked with you today. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me. The pleasure was mine. I sincerely hope we get to do it again.
Oh, we definitely will, and especially if this triple threat comes out, it's gonna happen. I'm gonna make sure it happens. That's for sure.
Well, I appreciate that, man. Thank you very much for having me, and continue blessings to you, man. Keep doing what you do. It's appreciated.
Well, thank you so much, and yeah, keep just looking out for new episodes because they will be coming soon. I got some ones coming up next week that they're gonna be pretty stellar. So,
Can't wait.
well, I hope everyone enjoys their day, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Have a great week.
You too.